Hello, welcome. My name is Douglas Grummins, and today I'll be talking about multidimensional theory as applied to a meditator's perspective. Before we get into the discussion, I'd like to tell you that I am not a physicist. I am only a meditator. When I say I'm only a meditator, what I mean is I bring meditation into everything that I do. Every aspect of my life has some meditative quality about it. I mostly enjoy surfing and skydiving, but I've brought meditation into those things as well. But today's discussion is going to revolve around what we call string theory. String theory proposes that there are 11 dimensions in our universe, 3 of which we can see. We call them spatial dimensions, such as height, width, breadth, length, and depth. And then Einstein comes along and says that the 4th dimension is time. These 4 dimensions combined together we call space-time. And Einstein says that these 4 are all relative, and the other 7 are the quantum level. When I say the quantum level, what I mean is maybe it's either subatomically so small that it can't be seen by the naked eye, or it just cannot be perceived by the naked eye. What's interesting about string theory is that it's the only theory out there, the only one that holds up to the math. Physicists have determined that string theory only holds true if the numbers are right. And in this case, the number is 11. They tried 12 and it didn't work. 13, it didn't work. 14 didn't work. 15 didn't work. 11 was the magical number. And I think the next one up was either 23 or 26 or something. So 11 is the magical number. And here's where we get into the spooky part. So there's 4 dimensions that are relative, and the other 7 are on the quantum level. But there are also 7 chakras in the human physique. Each one of these chakras is a doorway to the next chakra. So in other words, there's a doorway to another dimension. When I say a doorway to another dimension, that really only applies to those that meditate. We all go through life every day existing in the first 4 chakras. The root chakra, the sex chakra, the solar plexus, and the heart. These 4 chakras, the first 4 chakras, also coincide with the physical body being the root chakra, the emotional body being the second chakra, the solar plexus, the third chakra, is the mental body, and then the 4th body, the heart, is the spiritual body. The reason I'm splitting up the 4 from the 7 is that the 4, everybody, even non-meditators, experience and fluctuate between these 4, and they're all affected by gravity, a little different than the top 3, the throat chakra, the third eye chakra, and the crown chakra. The thing to remember is that even though you don't have to be a meditator for energy to circulate up and down through your psyche, in order for energy to enter the 5th and 6th and 7th chakras, you have to start at the bottom. You have to start at the gateway, and the gate is at the bottom with the physical body, and the root chakra, and when you raise energy up through meditation, then you go up and you unlock the door to the next chakra, and then to the next, and then to the 4th, and then at the 4th, this is where things get interesting. If you keep meditating enough, the energy that keeps rising up into the 4th will gather enough. And the 4th is important because it's the middle chakra. It's the heart, and that's where God meets you. This is where God lives within your being. So we have 2 forces. The first force is gravity, and gravity is entering through your physical body and rooting you to the earth. And it's important to be rooted. You need to be rooted in order for the first 4 chakras to open up. You have to be well. You have to be physically well in order for energy to raise up into the emotional body. I say well as balanced. You have to be physically balanced. You have to be in a well state of being where you're not sick or sickly in any way. And the same goes for the emotional body and the mental body. You have to be in a good state of mind. You have to be in a good space where the energy will rise. The energy is not going to rise if you're not emotionally mature or not spiritually mature. So the energy raises up through the first 4 chakras. But like I said, gravity does affect these first 4. But then you've got another force coming in through your crown chakra and going down. And this force is the other law, the second law I was talking about, and this is the law of levitation. And every meditator experiences this law of, of meditation every time they meditate. I mean, meditation is so mystical. You go into meditation and energy starts going up, and you feel energy shifts when you meditate. When I say you meditate rightly, and when I say meditate rightly is when you're meditating and you're having gaps where you still everything, you still the mind, you still, you know, everything, and you jump out of time. When I say jump out of time, the first four chakras are tied down with time. But when you meditate and you raise enough energy up to the fourth level, the fourth chakra, then there's a layer, an invisible layer that breaks, eventually breaks, and then the energy can then go up to the fifth chakra, the sixth chakra, and the seventh chakra. When this energy level breaks, when there's at least 51% of all your spiritual energy is raised up into the heart, then enlightenment happens. And this is the point where, like I said, where you get to meet God. But Einstein called the fourth dimension time, and I call the fifth dimension no time. This is the point where you live in the now, where you experience only living in the present moment, moment after moment. And one can only experience this living in the present moment when they've broken that barrier of the fourth. Um, and then and that allows them to go into the fifth level, the sixth level, and the seventh level. And what's interesting about the fifth, sixth, and seventh is if we relate the fifth, sixth, and seventh chakras to the ninth, 10th, and 11th dimensions, then things get really interesting because there are three levels of samadhi, and samadhi can really only be experienced when after enlightenment. I mean, there may be some freak cases out there where some people have had glimpses of samadhi or you know, a glimpse of enlightenment first, but those are exceptions to the rule. And for myself personally, I mean, I didn't experience any visions or really any understanding until the my third eye was opened. I didn't visually experience the first four. Now I won't say that it applies to enlightenment because when enlightenment happens, you can actually visualize it and you get to see what happens. But in samadhi, it's a little different. In samadhi, uh, it's like you disappear. Okay, so when you enter the fifth chakra, the first level of samadhi, you disappear, and in essence, like they say, the ocean becomes the drop, and the drop becomes the ocean. They merge together, and then when you come back out of this state of samadhi, only then will you know. Oh wow, hey, wow, that was amazing. You know that's what samadhi is. When the drop disappears, and then there's three levels. So the fifth chakra is the first level of samadhi, and then the third eye chakra is the you know the it is the sixth chakra, but is also the second level of samadhi. I don't know if anyone's ever explained it the way I'm explaining it. That the top three levels or three dimensions, you could say, are in relation to the different levels of samadhi. Um, and what's interesting is like I said, I didn't experience anything visual until my I had enough energy up into my third eye chakra, um, and then it opened, and when it opened, it was like uh, visualizing energy, but energy in specific geometrically perfect proportions. So everything was like a grid, a beautiful grid though, and it's overwhelming when you see it. I mean, other people have to take drugs to see what you see as a meditator, but a meditator doesn't need drugs when he gets into the levels of the third eye chakra being open. But that's the visualization of the ninth dimension. Now, the 10th dimension, or the second level of samadhi, um, is a little different. It's even more above. The gravity level is lighter even than that of the visual experience of everything being geometrically perfect. Um, and when I first saw the first level of the second samadhi, I mean, I was blown away when I saw the energy the second level of samadhi, which is the 10th dimension that we can experience as a human being. It is energy in its purest form, and the only way I could really explain it would be like to me, it looked like stars or little dots of light energy, and they're rushing towards me, like millions and millions and millions of stars, like rushing towards me. But I also noticed that if I focus my mind energy to push the energy out, it rushed away from me, and in the same proportion. So as sometimes the energy is pouring into you, and then you can change the direction of the thought and the energy goes in the other direction away from you. Now, this only goes on for a few seconds because remember, in samadhi, you're disappearing. Okay, so you visualize, you can see this thing going on for a few seconds, and it's just a mind game. But after the mind game, then you go into the deeper level of samadhi, and you disappear again. Because remember, in samadhi, you disappear, and like I said, the ocean becomes the drop becomes the ocean. And when you come back out of it, then like I said, you know that you've experienced the 10th dimension. Now, the 11th dimension, the highest, the crown chakra, is so subtle. And remember, every time energy raises up, it becomes more subtle and more subtle and more subtle. But when it comes into the 11th, that is the highest. And that samadhi is so subtle that nothing can be said of it. It is complete emptiness. And Buddha called this nirvana. He called nirvana is the extinguishing of a flame. Literal translation is you are extinguishing a flame, and that is the highest. That's the last dimension that you can actually go into in the human psyche. So remember, I was saying that the magical number is 11. So there's 11 dimensions. There's 7 chakras. There are 4 physical, or 3 physical, and the time spatial relativity factor. But also remember, it works with the number 23. And what's interesting about the number 23, and I don't know because I don't know all the energy points, but there are also subdivisions. The first 7 chakras, the main chakras of the human psyche, those are the major energy centers. There are also sub-energy centers, smaller energy centers, such as the hands and the feet. But those number up into the 20s. It'd be very interesting and I'd love to hear some feedback about that sometime, about getting into the discussion to find out, what the relation is to the sub chakras, the smaller energy centers throughout the human body. And also remember, we have millions of nerve endings, and each one of these nerve endings are feeding into other nerve endings that are resonating into the different chakras throughout the human body. So on the one side, we have physicists trying to discover and make more than just a theory of these 11 dimensions that make up our universe. And then on the other side, we have the meditators who are actually experiencing these dimensions and these different levels of dimensions. But the thing to remember is that man is the key. We are the highest level of consciousness in our existence. We are the highest. There is none higher than us, and each human being has the key to unlock the 7 dimensions. And in my view, once you unlock all 11 dimensions and unify all of them, then the crown chakra is completely open, and it's a thousand-petaled lotus, as Buddha would have called it. The continual flowering. The flowering never stops when you reach the 11th dimension. Imagine if Einstein would have been a meditator. I mean, he probably could have unlocked some of the deepest secrets of all of our existence. But anyway, that's what happens when I start mixing physics with spooky meditative talk. Again, thank you for joining me. I hope you enjoyed this talk. I really enjoyed it. It's one of my favorite things to talk about. But again, to find out more about me, I have written a couple books. One is called Songs of the Buddhas, and the other is called 10,000 Waves. I think they're both available on Amazon, or I don't think they're in any bookstores. I'm not that popular yet. Thank you. Y'all have a good day.